us to define it the manner in which we understand it was a genocide. A genocide was perpetrated by the government of Zimbabwe, and we have to say it that Zimbabwe is one of the countries that suffered a genocide. Then, on the negative piece, in fact, on the initiative that have been undertaken, I think we are still on the negative. I sincerely believe if we are transforming from the negative piece to positive piece, the starting point is acknowledgement that we are addressing a genocide that was committed. We have to be open and honest. And if we are addressing that, we have to acknowledge that it didn't happen in Mat North and Mat South. It even happened in Midlands. So if you want to address it in pieces, leaving Midlands behind, having chiefs of Midlands not participating, not knowing, there is no certainty. You have got the MPRC today, tomorrow you have got the chiefs, and you have got the ruling party, as Dr. Moyo said, that what was said, it's said, but I don't think we have to say it's said because we're not sure about the party position. We have been seeing an individual, the head of government, but we have not seen the party, the role of the party, because the mandate of a person or governing is without a party. What is the party position? Because the Secretary General of that party is saying something that contradicts, and it is continuously contradicted his principle. And even other subordinates have consistently said it was resolved. So we don't know, because if party city walungiswa, law osesikhundleni sithi is addressing it, we raised it labo babomtshana ukuthi hayi kule problem hambani liyetshela laba abalithumileyo, because NPRC was supposed to be independent and it has proven not to be independent ngoba ubaba Onare, in my view, he was not supposed to chair Poland, but what's in a say chair? Gathesi uthi kwenzakalani la iwabonara, I've always asked him ukuthi lenzani babonara. He is not clear. One day now the chiefs are taking over, taking the mandate, getting it from where it's not constitutional. They are getting it from an individual whose party is not saying there is a problem. The party believes the problem was resolved. So into yethu le esizama ukuyilungisa, I think we are still where we were in the negative piece, because if we are transformed from the negative, there should be an acknowledgement ukuthi kwaba le around a genocide esesiyilungisa, and who are the interested parties. Akufakwe umthetho, there's no law, there's no legislation, there's no statutory instrument to say siyilungisa kanje. Next year singavota. If Emerson loses next year, there is no one who is sure of the future of this thing. If it is somebody else, not him, because I have been following the only person who comes to the State House, even when Moati was supposed to be the minister responsible for peace, he didn't participate in the engagement with the civic society, he didn't participate in the engagement with the traditional leadership, but it has always been the president and the two ministers, and we don't know exactly if it happens that he loses power within his organization, does the person who takes over, because it's not a party program, because if it was a party program, we're supposed to see Obed Mpofu, we're supposed to see George Charamba, we're supposed to see a number of people talking about addressing it. But all what they've said consistently, they've said it was resolved by Nkomo and Mgabe. Even July, when they in their last meeting with the traditional leadership, he said it was addressed, and I was shocked. Why are they here if it was addressed? So I think it is said, because even when they come here, they will come and say they are launching it, but they don't tell us the time frame. When is it starting? How much has been budgeted? But just saying they are launching, and we have the chiefs. If I can ask them, when are you going to meet your communities? They will tell you that they don't have fuel. I once engaged umalisa wathi kala fuel yokusuka emzini wakhe esiyahlangana lama communities. They can't move, they are immobile, they are incapacitated, they don't have resources. It has been launched, I think it is now a month, but there is no budget. And even when the finance minister addressed the nation presenting his budget, there was nothing to say there is a national program that will be undertaken.
You know, we realized that to heal the living, you had to heal the dead. In many instances, not in all. Also, for me, the dead are eyewitnesses. Okay, if we're talking about allowing victims to speak, the most important voices in this are the dead. Okay, and if you are a forensic anthropologist doing a proper exhumation and not somebody just trashing bones, like we've seen happen with our Fallen Heroes Trust, for example, if you really work carefully with bones, they will speak to you and they will tell you, I was male, I was in my 50s when I died, I was 1 meter 70 centimeters approximately high, I died in this era because I have Zimbabwean coins in my pocket, I was shot through the head, or I was bayoneted. We've just been analysing somebody who had 27 bayonet marks on his body. That was actually somebody killed in the 70s, incidentally, because I think all dead are equal, all dead need to be honoured. And the problem in Zimbabwe is that only the dead of the 70s have been honoured. That's why we have heroes' acres everywhere. And then when somebody like Mbuso tries to put up a memorial, it gets knocked down, because the 80s, you can't honour those dead. That's not okay as far as the state is concerned. So the dead speak. But only to the accounts of others. And for us, that means we're running out of time. You know, it's 40 years since the Kurahindi started in February next year. And that means we're losing our widows. We're losing our parents. Okay, if you were 40 then, you're now 80. You're probably dead already. Or you're old and you can't quite remember anymore. All you know is that you desperately want your husband back. But you can't remember anymore for sure. Where was he buried? Landscapes change. Trees grow. Trees fall over. Paths change. Cows make new paths. Homesteads disappear. So people lose their points of reference in terms of finding bones. But the good news for us is that in fact there were very many eyewitnesses of where people were buried. And where people are buried is not anonymous, Dewa. It's not that anonymous in Matabeleland, okay? And especially in Matabeleland North, because so many of those murders were very public. People were killed in front of the whole village. Wives were forced to watch their husbands die. Children were forced to watch their parents die. So they know, okay, but they're just afraid of dealing with those bones. Firstly, because it's the Abapanzi Bazandila and nobody wants to deal with them. But secondly, they know they don't have the expertise to go into a grave and pull out seven skeletons without commingling the remains, which our team can do, okay, so that every finger, every toe, every rib goes with the right individual, okay, and that's a very expert training, okay, which some of us have been exposed to this for more than 20 years now. And then there are various ways of deciding which individual is which, and it doesn't always involve DNA, by the way. We recently just discriminated between 2 young girls based on their waistline, based on their polyester skirts. Okay, we could see which one was fat and which was thin, based on the fact their clothes survived. So there are lots of ways of saying who is who, you know, when you're exhuming. So digging up the dead is therapy for the living. You're not only healing the dead, you're healing the living. And an exhumation is like a mini truth commission, because the family is vindicated. We told you this is what happened. We told you they were buried in the middle of the field. We told you they were buried in the schoolyard. And there they are, and the bones speak to the truth of the living. So they speak to one another, the dead and the living, through us, okay, as facilitators, who are simply there to be the hands of the chiefs and to be the hands of the families. I also just wanted to comment, Dewa, as Mbuso said, it wasn't a war. Okay, when people just take things, you know, from other academics, these weren't the war-torn people, okay, these were the victims of genocide. I don't think we've exhumed a single person who actually had a gun or a weapon in their hands at the time. I know there were dissidents out there, numbering approximately 300. Okay, and that's actually Emerson Mnangagwa's own figure, okay, to the Boston Lawyers for Human Rights in 1985. The dissidents numbered never much more than 300. That's a direct quote. How do you reconcile that with the number of people who died? It wasn't a war. I also just wanted to make a very quick comment about Rwanda, because I always hated when people use them as a good example, because their use of human remains has been atrocious, in that they have commingled remains. I don't think any person wants to have their skull there and their femur here and their humerus there in giant anonymous piles. And I know that there are many, many victim families in Rwanda who entirely object to that as well. And to the fact that you've got human remains like in churches covered in lime being preserved forever and ever, you know, and then you've got some mother coming and saying, that's my 9-year-old child there in the church on a pew with the public gawking, and I want my child back to bury them properly. And in terms of the law in Rwanda, that's not possible. The state owns those remains and they decide what happens to them. So as far as human remains are concerned, I think they're one of the worst examples. Although I agree that in many other ways, you know, a lot of what they've done is good. But for me, I'm always concerned about the rights of the dead, which is to remain intact. Okay? You need your head, you need your vertebrae. There's 206 bones in a human body. You need them all. Okay, when you are reburied, every single one, and you need an expert who can do that work. And it's not a very common expertise, as you can imagine. Not everyone loves bones like Nokutula and Bongi and me, and others in our team. But you know, we are fortunate, perhaps in Zimbabwe, that our team exists, because I think we're the only non-governmental exhumation team in sub-Saharan Africa. There's the Missing Persons Task Team in South Africa, but they're governmental. They're part of the National Prosecuting Authority, and they've been looking for the date of the apartheid era as part of the recommendations of the Truth Commission. And in fact, our team has worked with them, okay, in Mamelodi Cemetery, looking for those who were hanged by the apartheid state to return them to their families. So I think it's important that there is an understanding in the room that it is possible to honour the dead, not just by memorials, but by recovering their bones properly and restoring identity. And they are eyewitnesses in need of protection, which means nobody should be allowed to touch bones except experts, because if a non-expert goes in, they are going to silence those bones. They are going to silence them. They are going to chop them up. I mean, you know, I know we have somebody from ZRP here, and in fact we work with ZRP through UBH, through the morgue there, when bones are turned up. They know my number's on the phone, on the blackboard, and they call me if it's bones, and I go in and then look at the bones. And what I normally find is that bones have been poorly recovered, that there are simply a few long bones there, that vertebrae and ribs and fingers get left behind, and bones have often been chopped up with spades. Okay, so you get so much post-mortem damage that you can no longer see peri-mortem damage, which means trauma at time of death. Okay, I'll leave it there.